Hello, today I'm going to show you potentially how to repair a Joy-Con from a Nintendo Switch and replace the shell of it with a clear shell. I've done this already with the right Joy-Con, and it was very difficult, in my opinion, compared to the easy to follow guides that supposedly explain how. I ended up breaking the micro switch off of the top right switch in it, and I had to solder it back in order to make it work again, which I'm amazed I was able to do because it's very small soldering and I'm not really great at soldering. So I'm going to show you me attempting to repair the left Joy-Con. So this Joy-Con, I purchased it from a Wonder Rex here in Japan for 330 yen, which is about $2. I also purchased the right one for the same price. Both of them had loose analog sticks. This Joy-Con, the left one, best I can tell testing it's completely broken. Well, the buttons work on the Switch, but the analog switch itself, it does not work at all. I think someone tried to repair it previously because there's a, if you look closely, the screw here is missing screw. So someone previously disassembled this Joy-Con and I think didn't do it correctly. So we'll see if I can learn anything from why it doesn't work. I'm going to replace the analog switch with a Hall sensing joystick from GuliKit. I already did so with the right one, so there's only one in this box. This is the other one. So we're going to replace it with that one. So here goes. So first, I'm going to use an iFixit screwdriver with the Tri-Wing for Nintendo devices because I actually got a small screwdriver along with one of these things. I think it came with this clear shell that I'm going to use, and it was terrible, and it didn't work very well for removing the screws, so I'm going to use this much better screwdriver. So first I'm removing the outside screws for the shell. Which there are three. Well, should be four, but one's missing. So then you just sort of yank this thing apart, step one. Well, carefully, in the hopes, wait, there is tape from my purchase of this. So, like I said, step one is pulling it apart carefully without trying to break it in the process. Okay, so I've cracked it open. You can see there's connectors between the two pieces that you don't want to damage. There's some damage to the... It looks like the battery adhered to the outside a little bit and part of the black part came off. So, step two. So I'm not following any guide. I'm just going to wing it here based on my experience doing the right Joy-Con, which you can sort of do. The one thing that I learned from doing the first one is that this piece here, the trigger switch, you just sort of pop off. So I'm going to just sort of, I don't want to bend my tweezers here. Let's use a screwdriver as a prying tool instead. You just sort of pop that thing out and you drop it on the ground like me. So you can sort of see it has just these little tiny plastic pieces that just secure it into here. And there's these two little tiny springs, which the other guides that I saw didn't really explain. Let me focus this a little better. This Still hard to see. Let me zoom in a little bit more. These little tiny springs here were underneath of that switch trigger that I popped out. So just place these aside. And then, let's see, the next step, since I can't easily detach these two ribbon cables yet, because the battery is in the way for the one of them, I need to remove this battery holding piece of plastic, which is equivalent to this new clear piece. So, I'm trying to remember if there's screws. It looks like the screws are missing already. There should be a screw. Zoom this out again. There should be a screw, if I recall, holding this in. Let's see, down here. I thought there was a screw that holds that in, but doesn't appear to be on this one. So I'm just gonna pop out this. Well, wait. Let's remove the battery first. Can we remove the? Yeah, I can remove the battery. So the battery is just sort of taped down with some like light glue. So I'm gonna just pry it out of there, like I did the other one. You're not really supposed to bend the battery, which is quite dangerous. But luckily this one just pops out. The glue was already quite weak, not very sticky anymore. And this battery connector down here, zoom in some more again, and try to focus. Doesn't really get much better than that, so you can just sort of pry out this battery connector. It sort of pops out. So that's the battery. The connector just has two little tiny metal pieces on the bottom, which fit into those tiny little grooves down there. Nothing else really holds it in except the tension, I guess the sideways tension a little bit. So it just pops out upwards. So that's the battery. And then you should unscrew this is the Z trigger switch. Unscrew the sensor board for that. This is the tri-line. I need the screws in the inside of this are Phillips, but a fine small Phillips screw. So remove that screw, and then this little board pops out. And then this piece of plastic should come out. I think maybe it's screwed down with these two screws that were underneath of the battery. Let's see, these screws. Yeah, see, if you look on the new plastic clear piece, two of these screws actually hold it down. These two. So those two need to be unscrewed. So I'm going to remove those screws. And then remove this plastic piece, and I'll put these screws, set them back in these holes to know where they came from for now. Set that aside. And then from here, I can now detach the outer shell part with the rail that locks it into the switch. So to do that, I'm gonna find a head piece here. And let's see if I can sort of see it there. So this little black piece flips up. So you flip that up, and then this just pulls right out. And then for this one, the opposite direction, locking the camera this way, you flip up the white piece placed on this side. And then once you do that, this small piece detaches as well. So that's the outside piece. So let's swap off the rail itself from this blue shell and reattach it to this clear shell instead. So to do that, there's just looks like one screw holding it down right now. So swap back to the Phillips and remove this one screw, holding it in, and the little release catch guy pops out. Set the old blue piece aside, reinsert this release, and the release has to go sideways with the little piece sticking out facing that way in order for it to match up with the sideways part on here. This little black piece here supposedly breaks easily, and there's metal replacements you can buy. I haven't seen that yet, but this one looks not broken, so it's fine. I just put this back here and then reattach the small screw holding it in place. I think it was here, I believe. So that's the rail now attached to the new clear outer shell. Set that aside. I'm going to set it over here. Oh, no, that in a way. How about here? Now we're going to swap the rest of the board. So this is attached via a bunch of screws, and there's also so you can see the micro switch that I actually broke on the other one. I don't know how I managed to break it off, but this micro switch right here, the right trigger, or this is the left Joy-Con, the left trigger. Let's focus that a little more. Move this out of the way. Still kind of hard to see, but yeah, this small trigger snapped off, and I had to solder it back. So who knows how I managed to do that, but this one is on there. It's not snapped off. That's great. So let's first remove, I guess, the analog stick module. And before we do that, let's detach the ribbon cable from, attach the ribbon cable from it. So that is one of these little black guys flips upwards. So I'll switch back to the small flathead. Flip that piece up, and then you can pull out the ribbon cable. Pull out the ribbon cable so that it's not in the way of the screw holding the analog stick module down. And unscrew the two screws holding in the analog module. Of course, I dropped the screw in the process. And I actually did not detach the analog stick ribbon cable. I detached the minus button, which was in the way of the screw. So this let's see. This here is actually the analog stick ribbon cable. So let's flip that up as well. As this black piece flips up, flip this up, and you can pull that out. Sort of got this jammed in the little black gasket piece. So I've removed the analog stick, the old one. This one is a little wiggly, and it also just doesn't work, as I mentioned. We'll see if this thing works at all, actually, after I put in the new Hall Effect analog stick. There might be something wrong with this board. I don't see any damage, but maybe there's something wrong with it. We'll see. So set aside the old one. And remember, these two screws go with the analog stick to hold it in. And now, let's see, do we need to detach other stuff? And I guess we should detach the rumble. That's just yanks upwards. I'm gonna pull it up with the, maybe not. Let's see, how do I get it? As far as I recall, you just pull it out upwards. I'm trying to use it with the okay, yeah. Took a little bit of force. So detach that small piece there. And then the analog module was actually like glued down. I'm gonna yank it off or pry it off with a flat head once I unscrew the controller board here. So there's, I don't know, a couple screws. Let's just remove whatever screws are there. Trying vaguely to remember where they were. These were at an angle here. I guess I can put them on the board after I remove the board to remember where they go. So one of them was, let's see, one of them was here and one of them was here. And my board is slightly transparent because I'm using a green mat here, and it's making the board transparent as well because it's green too. Okay, so now set this over here. And now the rest of these pieces can be swapped over to the new clear shell. Some of them have screws. Let's remove the ones with the screws first, I guess. So let's do the minus button first. Remove that screw holding it down. It also is attached, that ribbon cable also attaches to the analog trigger. So you need to remove that as well at the same time. So remove the other two screws on the board holding the micro switch. Then lift that out. Now we need to first swap the minus button itself. I'll just dump it upside down. Now, I don't remember which way it went actually, but looks like it goes two different ways. Put it back down inside of there, and then put the little rubber gasket on top of it, which the rubber gasket, it's a little easy to forget which way it goes. There's a tinier dot and a bigger dot, and I already forgot which way it goes. The tinier dot is the part that faces upwards, away from the button. So place that carefully where top of there. It lifts up a little bit because I have it laying on a flat surface. Then put the little board back and reattach the tiny screws that are almost invisible. And hopefully you have a magnetic screwdriver, because otherwise it is very hard to place these screws in place. Thankfully, these screws are actually magnetic. If they weren't, that would make it harder as well. And this this minus switch board, how does it hold in place? It's a little weird. Is it? It's a little weird. There's just one screw holding it down on one side. You'd think that it would like push the board a little bit. Is it not held in? But yeah, that, I guess its stuff is on top of that board pushing down on it, because otherwise the board kind of bends when you push on the minus button. That's really weird. Well, I would have added another screw if I designed this thing, but I guess it saves, what, half a cent for a screw or something ridiculous? So when I swapped to the clear shell for the right Joy-Con, I did not swap over this little black gasket thingy. You can just sort of yank it out and then I guess like stuff it on the new one with maybe a little glue, but I don't see why you need it. And then it just had a black thing getting in the way of seeing through the clear stuff. I think it's supposed to like cushion. You can see it sticks a little in further inward from the plastic, so it's supposed to protect the, I guess, the stick from rubbing up against the plastic. But who cares? So just forget that stupid black gasket thingy. So now, one thing that's a little bit annoying is when you pull out the buttons, you have to place them carefully back in the same position. If you use the tweezers, it makes it a little easier. The first time I did this, I just sort of dumped them on the table, and then I had a heck of a time aligning them correctly to face the right directions. So put them there. And I've already forgotten which way. I guess it goes this way. Yeah, this goes back on top of these. So you want to lift up the board a little so these sit down in there. And place this back on top. With the ribbon cable not underneath of it. Sort of push on a little bit. I'll do the same for, what is it, the camera button, I think. I guess it can go either way. I've already forgotten which way is up. That in there. Put the little rubber gasket back on. And then I pushed up on the buttons a little bit. Push those down again. Now I need to move this aside a little bit. I need to pry up the rumble unit. So rumble unit is just sort of glued down a little bit. I think of some like sticky tape. Just sort of stuff something sharp like a flathead under both ends and it pops up. And you can see it's just got like a little bit of sticky tape on it. It's not particularly sticky, but try not to break everything in the process of prying it off. So that's it for the old shell here. Set that aside, and now we can I guess put in the rumble back into the new clear shell here. And it sort of just pushes back into there. Now, let's see, we can reattach the board. The two screws holding it down. One of them here. One of them here. Okay, so I've aligned it. Now I need to add the screws back in. I'm not setting it back down flat because when you do that, it pushes on the buttons underneath and it can possibly misalign them. So I'm holding it above the surface a little bit to first screw it in place to hold the buttons in place. I'm gonna have to set it down to align the screwdriver. So I've screwed the board down. Now make sure it's tightened. Now I can test the feeling of the buttons. They seem still to be fine. And I can start out by, let's see, I detached this ribbon cable, if you recall, before removing the analog module because it was in the way of the screw. So I don't want to reattach that yet. This other Z switch also gets screwed down later after we put back the battery board in the middle. So leave that alone for now. I do want to reattach the rumble connector. We'll just sort of push this here, pop it back in. Now we can put in the new Hall effect stick. So turn it this way. Stuff it in. Make sure the ribbon cables are not getting smashed, which they sort of are. Try not to break them. It feels like it should go down more, but no, it's there. It just sort of sits there. I guess I should reattach the. This is a little tricky. Reattach the ribbon cable here. So I did this before without tweezers, and it was exceedingly difficult. It doesn't really need to use much force to go back in, but using tweezers, it makes it a heck of a lot easier to do this. So it just goes in here a little bit. It's actually, I find it annoyingly very difficult to know if this ribbon cable is in far enough. Last time I did it, I felt like it wasn't attached, and it actually was, and it worked. So I think it only goes in a little bit. And then after you've done so, you just flip down this little black piece. And you can sort of test that it's in there by seeing that it doesn't pull out now. But I have very little confidence. And you'll see I just wedged this other ribbon cable underneath of that one. I don't think I was supposed to do that. I'm going to pull this one up. wiggle this one around so this is on top of there. And then try to damage all the ribbon cables again, of course. This one is getting stuck underneath of the screw, part of the analog. Ugh. So get that out of there. Wiggle all these pieces around. Now, okay, now I can screw down the analog module, which I think is with these screws over here. So let's screw these guys in. This one. And here's one more. And on the right Joy-Con, when I did this, I managed to over-tighten one of the screws, or I think I mixed up the screws and I accidentally put the wrong screw in this hole, and it stripped the screw hole and removed some of the plastic, and then the screw just turned instead of tightening. And basically on these, new clear shells, be careful not to over-tighten the screws and strip the plastic, because the plastic is not very strong and you can easily strip the screw holes, and then, well, you're kind of sunk because you can't properly tighten things in order to ensure that when you're pushing on the Joy-Con, it doesn't push it away from the plastic. So don't do what I did. Don't over-tighten the screws. Just tighten them enough carefully and then stop. So now that I've reattached, let's see, wait. So this goes in after the battery board, but we can reattach the trigger ribbon cable, which is yet another little miniature ribbon cable that is extremely hard to know if you're stuffing it in correctly. So the black piece flips up. You push it in a tiny bit. Not much. I think it's already in there all the way. And then you flip this little black bit down. And there you have it. And it's sort of in the way of the side connector now, but whatever. I mean, it sort of lifts up enough that it'll be okay. So now, I believe when you put the battery board back, with, like I said, I think there's a screw missing to hold it down. But, oh well, who cares? Oh, but wait, I want to reattach the side rail, that's right, because so I can flip down the latches for the ribbon cables. So let's try to make it so you can sort of see this. 2 points that are reattaching. So this one, let's see, this one. I don't know if I can do it from this angle. Let's see. Yeah, I grabbed it, push it in a tiny bit gently, flip down the plastic, and voila. Now that one's connected. And now repeat this process with this one. I can barely see it. And really hard to see how it aligns. I think that's in. Hold it. And flip the black piece down again. Hold it in place. And it pops right out because I didn't do it right. Let's use a small flathead instead to play with this small little black latch. Now let's try this again. Ugh. Maybe I should have reattached the micro switch ribbon cable afterwards. It's really in the way of doing this. And the black piece is flipping down on me in the process of me trying to do this. I don't want it to flip down yet. I can't be sure this is seated correctly. Ugh. Okay, I'm gonna detach the micro switch connector because it's in the way of doing this. It's very distracting to me. Let's try this again. Now that I've attached the ribbon cable that's in the way, see if I can determine the alignment of this. I think that that's it. I don't think so. It's still not in there correctly. Maybe, aha. Okay, so this little tiny black bit has to be kind of vertical instead of back all the way in order to be able to insert the ribbon cable. So okay, I think I've done it. When I inserted it, it sort of automatically caused the little black bit to go down and to secure it in place. So I believe that I've reattached the cable correctly. It's kind of difficult. So let's reattach the micro switch ribbon cable next. My face is also in the way of you being able to see some of this stuff. Sorry. Let's move this way. Flip this black bit up. Imagine that I know how to do this. Ah, okay, so push it in a little bit. Flip the black bit down. Now I can place the battery back. So I don't remember which way the battery goes. Let's see. Well, the connector plugs in over here on this side. So this goes roughly in like that. So the cable has to go out this way. And so I actually added some more Scotch tape on the right Joy-Con because the old tape no longer stuck after I yanked it off. And I don't think you really need it. I think you can just throw the new one in there with no tape and it's fine. And I don't have any tape nearby and I'm not going to run away to grab tape to demonstrate this. And plus, this battery is probably shot and I'll have to do another video just replacing the battery, which is a shorter process than all of this. So I'm just going to sit it back in here with nothing really holding it in. But wait, before I do that, I have to screw down this battery connector board. And here's a tricky bit. So when you do this, you first have to connect the... Well, I guess you don't need to connect this bit yet. You can connect that afterwards. But what you do need to do is be careful of, I forgot to mention this, when you take the battery board off, there's a tiny spring, little tiny spring that's very difficult to see, that sits in here somewhere in order to cause this trigger to pop back up. So first, let's put the trigger in place to imagine how this works. I think it goes this way. Yeah, I believe it goes this way. Now, where in the heck does the little spring go? I think the spring goes right here. But I'm not quite sure how that makes sense, but I think it goes there. And then it just sits in this little alcove here. And you kind of have to do this a pile of times, and it still never stays in place. And hope you can get this to stay here in the process of you sandwiching it in here. So you carefully put this here, very carefully, and then you stuff this little plastic board down on top of it, and great. Now you can very vaguely see under this little hole here. You can't really see it on the video, but you can see in person that the little screw, the little spring there is in the proper place. And if you hold it down like this, like so, you can sort of push on the switch and tell it, yes, you've placed the spring in the right place, so congratulations. So hold it in place and feel bad about it because it feels like it's going to pop off at any moment because it's slightly misaligned. Once it's aligned correctly, find the screws that, wait, this is a flathead, that won't work. This is a Phillips. So I have to read. I don't want to let go because everything will pop apart, sort of. Take the tiny screw, put the tiny screw back in the proper place, turn it, and it just turns and turns and turns, and that's not right because it's not doing squat. Maybe one of them's longer than the other. Must be. Great. No, I can't get it. Okay, yes. Wow, I didn't know that. Okay, so yeah, this this screw in this position is longer than the other one. Or oh no, this is some other screw. I picked up the wrong screw. Great. So the screws that I want are still in the board here, and they're longer. So we'll use the correct screw, which is slightly longer, to screw down the board, little battery board, which also holds down the micro switch trigger. Get the other longer screw. Also screw that one back in. Okay, great. So everything's screwed down. This is sort of lifts a little bit. I feel like there should be a screw to hold it down, but there's not. It just sort of gets sandwiched in with everything else. So now we can, I should have reattached the battery earlier. It's a little bit hard to get the battery connector back connected. It's down in there. I don't know if you can see where it goes. You can see it goes, it connects down here. So I need to reattach this battery cable with the tweezers with great difficulty. So take this piece and I can't take this. And what? So how do I do this? Align it, and then you sort of need something to push it down with. Ugh. It's, yeah, so I did it. That's a little difficult. Not too bad, but difficult. Now, I can, so this little tiny screw here that I used the wrong screw is the screw that holds down this switchboard into the middle battery board. Now, I don't remember exactly how this was aligned. There's two little round thingamajiggies that it sits in. I feel like I have managed to place this little ribbon cable guy in the wrong place. Maybe it was supposed to go under there. It doesn't feel like it's supposed to go over top of the battery like this. Seems wrong. I think it's supposed to go through. It puts this screw aside before I lose it. I think this ribbon cable is supposed to go along this edge and then around this corner before it sits up here. But I'm not sure how to. I think it has to turn. It has to rotate. I think I might need to move the battery out of the way and detach. Might have to detach this in order to do this correctly. Maybe. Ugh. Okay, I think that works. I've just sort of wiggled it around the edge in order to get it into place. Still not in exactly the correct. Oh no, it's popping out. Ugh. Yeah, I feel like I'm gonna break this cable. Okay, it's wedged in there wrongly. Because I can see underneath this clear plastic is going like slightly this way. I need to unscrew the middle battery board in to reposition that cable slightly. Which, the moment I do that, the spring's gonna pop out. So let's just wiggle this. It goes underneath of there. Rescrew the battery board down. Now you can see I've just, instead of rounding around this edge, actually that ribbon cable now goes underneath of here and then pops out right next to this screw hole here before coming out there. And I believe that'll let me have the distance I need in order to position it properly on the two mount points, which it does. And now I will be able to actually screw it down. And I can't even tell which hole it goes in. I think it goes in the bigger hole. Bigger hole, I believe. I can't even see it. It's not even, yeah. it is the bigger hole. It's the top hole. And it popped out and I dropped the screw. But the screw is right here. Almost invisible. It's very tiny. Maybe it's the battery in place. It's not sitting out there. Let's align this switch using tweezers. Hold it down with my finger. And now we'll attempt to put this screw back in. There, I did it. And I over-tightened it a little bit. But that's okay. Just don't tighten it too much. So now that I did that, you'll remember that we have to place the two tiny springs back in the right place and then manage to pop this back down. This is another great and difficult part. So take these two tiny springs. This spring here. And tiny spring. And I did this last time with that no tweezers, just my fingers. It was almost impossible. Use tweezers. It makes it a little bit easier. Not really, but a little bit. So now, those two springs that are sticking up from there, they need to touch. We'll go into this point on this little bit of plastic and this point here. Wait. Yeah, this point here. You can barely see. Good luck. So you sort of look at it very carefully. And then the spring pops out and is misaligned, and you're like, the heck? How are you supposed to do this? Set that little spring there. How? I don't get it. Where is it? Here. I mean, because the problem is it pops down with some tension when you do this. Where the heck? How? I did it before, some ways, somehow. Oh, I see. So, no, I don't see. It. I don't know. I just sort of jammed it back down in there. You can see if you look at the inside bits, it looks like it's supposed to pull out a certain way, but I don't see how you could. I don't know how it's possible. What? Okay, I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna place the springs to the side and just comprehend exactly how this bit goes back on there first by looking at it sideways as I jam this piece back in place. There's got to be a better way to do this. What? Okay, so I placed it back in place without the springs, just to comprehend what I'm doing first, to see the flush alignment here. Now I'm going to pop it back off. And of course I dropped it again. And I moved my camera in the process. Let's go find where it went. Alright, so I have found where I popped off of this little guy too. Now, let's try this again. Place tiny spring. You know, I feel like I would like to do it to the bottom of this, but it doesn't hold in place. Place spring here. Place spring here. Watch springs wobble. Imagine that the little holes are aligned. Maybe more light would help me. Ugh. I feel like this was easier for the right Joy-Con. It was still difficult, but I'm gonna have to cut out part of this video, maybe, because this is taking an eternity just to get the springs in place. I could sort of just jam it together incorrectly for the sake of this video. I think I may do that until I know how to do this, aligning them properly, because I can't really see what I'm doing here properly. So the problem is it needs to go like at an angle down like this to pop on there. But, so maybe that's the key. So find the springs this way first, then I've jammed it in there with one spring aligned. The other spring is misaligned. So I think that might be the way to do it, is misalign it and then just use some tweezers in there to realign the other spring. So it's not aligned correctly, only one spring. And look what I've done. I just snapped my ribbon cable in half. So this ribbon cable is now kaput. So yeah, don't do what I did and break your ribbon cables. So yeah, that's shot now. I need a replacement. So this one just like popped out of its connector, so maybe I didn't connect that one tight enough correctly, or hopefully it just popped out. So this one's not broken, but this one is actually snapped in half. So there you go. You can do everything nearly correctly like me, and be very careful with all the little screws. And then when you're trying to exert tremendous force in order to pop this stupid little switch back in, you can break everything, and then you're ruined. And then you have to find the source for one of these ribbon cables, which, for giggles, let's set this to the side and see if that ribbon cable could even theoretically be replaced by itself without replacing the entire right rail. I bet the right rail has to be replaced, which this probably ruins the value of the whole thing. You probably have to get like another whole Joy-Con to fix this. So, but for giggles, let's detach the, well, actually I should detach the rail from the plastic shell first. So let's detach it from the shell. And then I already removed one of these two screws. Let's remove the other one and see what we can learn about this little ribbon cable guy. And what does this ribbon cable even do? Is it needed? What does it do? Okay, there we go. This ribbon cable is the indicator lights for which controller is active. So I think actually this Joy-Con will still work with I snapped off the indicator lights. So yay! My Joy-Con will still sort of work, I think, unless it doesn't like that you don't have the LEDs connected. But usually, most electronics will still work if you disconnect those things. So now let's reassemble this sideboard here. Oh, I forgot to switch. Oh wait, no, it's not just the indicator lights. That's also the L and R buttons if you're using it in a sideways way. But I don't ever do that, so you don't need those either. So if you don't mind losing your detached L and R, well, you can just sort of cut that cable off. Let's put that back there. Let's reattach these two tiny screws, which are really hard to align on a screwdriver. We went here and perhaps here. Now let's go back over here and observe my colossal mistake. And let's reconnect the other ribbon cable, which is actually the connector to the console. That one's pretty important. Flip up. Flip up. Ugh. This connector right here. And then reconnect this dealy. Now let's flip back down. Back portion. Test that it doesn't pop out. Okay, that's good. This ribbon cable is shot. I still didn't realign the correct spring, but let's, for the sake of demonstration, continue the reassembly without properly doing that. So it's sort of... Oh yeah, my battery just falls out because I didn't put anything to hold it in place. Align the rail here in the right place. And then, oh yeah, the great fun of upside down connecting the other bit, because otherwise this little tiny black guy falls out of place. So you sort of have to hold this all upside down and then hold it up. It doesn't fall apart, but you will with this because the battery's not held in place anymore. Oh, that's a good reason that the battery should be glued in. Maybe sideways I can do this. Maybe it won't fall out. Nope, everything falls apart. Come on, go back in. Uh-oh, did I do it right? Is it all jammed in place correctly? Yeah, okay, great. Is this, yeah, still pushes on the thing. Yippee. I've sort of managed to do it. Tape down the battery. Don't do what I did and just let it sit there because it's hard to stuff back together. Make sure the little rail release button still works. And so now let's replace the 3 out of 4 screws we should have with that hold the Joy-Con together. And these appear to be not magnetic, so just sort of stuff them in place with your fingers. I'm going to put the 2 screws by the rail connector because that's where it seems to be jammed together, where I want there to be tension holding it together. It still doesn't feel aligned properly. But I think it is. Maybe just use more force on the screw. Why doesn't it misaligned? I'm screwing and it's not doing anything. It doesn't like want to go down into that hole. Ugh. Yeah, that doesn't work at all. It doesn't screw into that. Maybe it is misaligned slightly. It was too tight? Doesn't attach close enough? Let's... Great. Is this... Oh, that's right. These are tri-wing screws. I need not the Phillips. So remember, when you're reassembling, you use the tri-wing to turn the screw, because otherwise it doesn't turn, it doesn't do anything. Okay, so tri-wing screw number 1. Tri-wing screw number 2. Tri-wing screw number 3. And I dropped the screw because it's not magnetic. Okay, which one should I stuff? Let's put the one by this trigger switch to hold it together there better instead of at the other corner, because I don't know, I feel like I'm more comfortable with the screw here. You should have 4 screws, unlike me, because I purchased my Joy-Con for $2. Okay, so it's a little wiggly. That's sort of normal. Push here, I can feel it moving. Now, when I did this for the right Joy-Con, this button, when I screwed in these screws all the way, it would get stuck and it wouldn't go click nicely. Or maybe I'd put the spring in the wrong place on the other one, I don't know. But I had to loosen up the screw on the right Joy-Con in order for it to work properly. So I've sort of essentially repaired this controller in theory. The battery appears dead because no lights are lighting up when I'm tapping on any of this stuff. Oh, well, I broke the connector to the lights, so I guess I wouldn't see the lights. So never mind the lights. Let's go connect this to Switch and see what happens. I'm going to have to cut this out because it'll take me a couple seconds to grab this Switch, but you will see me returning with the Switch momentarily. Okay, so I have returned with a Switch. Let's see which way is up. This way is up. And I have my right Joy-Con that I previously repaired without breaking it as much as I broke this one. So now let's put the left Joy-Con on. And let's turn on the Switch and see what happens. So let's go back to the utilities and you can test. Oh, look, I'm already using it without thinking. Yes, it works because I can move the left analog up and down and it does stuff. But let's test the rest of the buttons. Let's go to controllers and sensors and test input devices. Test controller buttons. And that's like left, up, down, right. this little button here, capture taken, minus works, L works, Z works, even with me only having aligned one of the little springs properly, which see, I should probably fix at some point. But there you have it. I have successfully managed to partially break my Joy-Con that was $2, but I've also made it function and have a new Hall effect analog stick. There you go. You have now observed the hazards of swapping your shell on your Joy-Cons and replacing your Hall effects, your stick with a Hall effect stick that's better. Hopefully, when you do this, you don't break it as much as I did. That's it. Thank you for watching.